Alright, so I'll share this Maya Help Doc link with you, but this is what I was kind of following to get the interactive hair groom exported out, and then we'll go ahead and attach that as normal splines, following a little bit different of a method. So the first thing they want you to do is if you go to this hair 59 base, that's your generator node, and through here they want you to adjust the multiplier. If you leave this set to 1, it's basically for every one of these there's going to be a spline that's going to be exported. So if you put this to maybe like 0.05, you can start seeing how many splines are going to move over. So the thing to keep in mind here is the amount of splines that you bring over are the amount that you're going to have to kind of edit or change if you want to make things look different. So if you want to try bringing something denser over at first, that's fine. Just know that each one of these splines is going to contain a clump of hair, and then that's going to be edited. So for my example, I'm going to bring over less. So maybe something like this. Okay, so from here we're going to export this as a cache file. So if you go to generate, and we want to create a cache, and then over here create new cache, and just go to your options. Coming down here, I just want to do the current frame because we're not baking out any animation. We're just baking out these splines at one frame. And then down here you want multiple transforms, right final width, both those checked, and Agawa is what we want selected here. So I'm going to go ahead and create, and then we can save this out. I put your scene inside of a scenes directory. I wasn't sure why that wasn't created. We can create that cache file here. If we back out one though, it really belongs inside of cache, Alembic, and then save them in here. So it's going to save it as Alembic file. And then for now I'm going to take this and just hide it, so Control H. Now another option that you potentially want to do is have an actual just skull cap that you're going to put this hair on. So I'm actually going to go to the side view here. And I'm just going to grab roughly the faces that you're going to be growing hair out of. And it can be a little bit more, it's not too big of a deal. And you can be more, if you choose to do this method, you can be more selective or better with these selections that you're doing. And the reason why I go this route is that skull cap can be bound the same way that the head's being bound to the rig, and it's going to be easier to move that hair system between characters if you needed to. So it just kind of separates it from this mesh, and that's all we're really doing. So we'll go ahead and duplicate. Now we should have that skull cap right here. And you can name that skull cap if you want, or however you want to name it. Yeah, it looks like I was missing maybe some spots in the selection. But from here, we're going to go to XGen, and I'm going to create a new description. And you can create a new collection with this if you want. Entirely up to you, or potentially you can add it to that other collection that you have. Or it looks like it doesn't want to select that collection, so we'll make a new one. We want splines because we're going to import those splines that we just cached out randomly across the surface, because Obviously we don't want it uniform, and we're going to place and shape them ourselves. So those are going to be the options. Click create, and then nothing's here yet because we have to add our splines in. Okay, so to import in the splines, we're going to go to cache, Alembic cache, and we're going to go ahead and import that. And you shouldn't really need any options here, so we'll go ahead and import. And I'm just going to pick that Julia's hair splines. So here's all those curves. If you just click on one, you see it comes in under here, you can just hit up once and it should on the arrow key and select them all. With them all selected, let's make this a bit bigger. We're going to go into utilities, and we want to do curves to guides. So I already have these open because I've been working with it, so you may not have curves to guides down here, but if you just click here, this guy should open up down here. We're adding it to that hair description. I don't like to delete my curves in case I need them later, so I usually uncheck that. And then we're going to go ahead and add guides. And then your guide should show up here, so we can go ahead and hide the curves because we won't need those anymore. And we'll go ahead and click this, and if we want, we can turn off the guides and we can start seeing the hairs being created. Now it's not following exactly what those guides were, because we're going to want to create clumps, and clumps are going to allow it to follow closer. So that's going to be one thing that we do. And let's just check how many CVs we're looking at here. And we only have 5 CVs to follow these curves, so it might help to have a little bit more than that. So you can rebuild, and instead of 5, maybe go with 15. And that's just going to give us more segments to help us follow the curve. So we might not even have to follow the clumps because that's actually pretty good. So I rebuilt, I added 15. Let's hide those guides again. Here's your density. So if you want more hairs to follow those guides, you can increase the density. Your width, maybe 0.02 is going to be pretty good to start with. So you want to find a good balance between the density and the width. And then to add your actual hair shader to this, you just click on head. You can select the hair right there, and then we'll open up our hypershade. And I think you had that hair physical 1 added, so I'm going to go ahead and assign that guy to it. And then we will go into preview outputs back inside of XGen, and we want to make sure operation is render, and the renderer we want to select is RenderMan. And just to double check everything's hooked up right, the hair physical shader 1 is the one that you wanted selected. So we're just double checking that. So everything looks like it's hooked up correctly, so I will go ahead and let's check this out. Oh. Go to RenderMan. And it looks like the hair's coming over. I'm not sure. I'll have to check into why it's not rendering red, if that's the color that you're looking for. So I can kind of bring that up in another video. The overall style looks good, but just to show you a couple things that might help you to adjust the actual style. I'll do, I guess I can keep it in this video. I was going to say I could do a different one for you. So not going to save this. A couple of things you'll notice is if you, a lot of times we want to kind of vary the length. Actually, let's queue up an IPR here. Yeah. So if you go under modifiers, we have a bunch of options here that we can add. The one thing that you could add first is clumping. And this is going to help to divide the hair up into these multiple little clumps. And it will start to look a little bit more natural. Now just adding this node, you won't see it happen out here. What you have to do is come down here and set up the maps. And you'll just hit guide because you want it to generate it based off those guides, and then save. It's going to bake out this file for the clumps, and then we'll redo that, and we should see the hair starting to kind of clump to the tip. So you can see right here it's now clumping a little bit more towards the tips. The other thing I like to add modifier wise is a cut modifier. So most haircuts, or as hair grows out, it's not going to be all the same length on the ends. So you'll just want to kind of randomize the end length a little bit, and it's going to make the tips of those clumps a lot of times feel a little bit more natural. Also, the hair is kind of perfectly straight right now. So another modifier that you could add to that is a little bit of noise or coil. So and you can play with both of these to kind of see what the noise does. This is always the root to the left, and this is the tip. So right now there's not much noise at the root, but there's a lot of noise at the tip. So we'll want to kind of balance that a bit. It looks like the IPR is not necessarily updating, so let's go ahead and going back to rendering just single frames. Okay, so now we can kind of see a lot better what that clumping is doing. So the clumping is maybe too heavy towards the tip. So what you can do is go back to clumping and open up that tip just a little bit. And we'll go ahead and render it again. So now you can see the clumps don't look quite as tight right by the end. And if you wanted to give more volume by the root here, you could always bring that up a little bit. It gives you more volume by the roots, and then as it comes closer to the tip, you could have it get skinnier. And then I'd say the hair is still kind of thick, so that's one thing to watch out for. Is I'd rather have more hairs and have them thinner because it's going to feel more realistic. So right now these hairs are pretty wide, but I kind of like that with a little bit more volume here. You're getting a couple flyaways here from the noise. I'm going to go back to my primitives and maybe the width, cut that in half, and so let's go up to maybe 60. Kind of jump through here, and you can see, the changes. So we had the really tight clumps on this one. Then we opened those clumps up a little bit. We gave it some more volume here, and now we just added a whole lot more hairs and made them skinnier. So the other one, if we go back to modifiers, that you could look at, and you can play with all of these. They all do kind of different things, but the coil, we could go ahead and add a coil in here. So this is the amount of coils. So for her hair, I'd maybe only do one. The count scale is going to be how that twist happens through here, like where the twist actually happens between the root and the tip, and then the radius is going to actually be the width that happens. So you could have, just a really kind of tight coil, and I would say not even having a whole lot of coil, but it adds a little bit of movement and body to the hair. So that's another thing. So now we're getting, this is starting to look, more and more like hair. Let's just kick this one off, and now we should just see a little bit of movement, happening right through here. Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of movement. I'd almost put more of that twist back in. But I know she has a, kind of a straighter hairstyle, so it's really up to you how you want to handle that. And I guess the last thing I can show you, if you ever need to adjust one of those splines, and this is, again, one of the reasons why I said I was more of a fan of taking kind of fewer splines in. If you grab any one of these splines that you would want to adjust and go to utilities, you can go guides to curves, which I also should have open here because I use it a lot. So right here, guides as curves, you're going to modify as a curve, and I like to lock the length. And then what you can do is grab the end here. Oops. Come on. It does not want to grab that one. Let's try this again. So modify as curves. And then if you grab this down here with the move, it kind of moves around. You'll see like hair. So, if I wanted to curve one piece kind of in front of her face like this, and say something like that, and then I would just accept, and it's going to turn that back to a guide. If I do accept that, turn that one back to a guide, and now we could escape here. Just render that one more time. And now we should see one of the clumps kind of going a little bit more in front of this eye right here. So now you see that clump of hair going in front of her eye, and you can actually see how thick, one of those clumps can actually get. So the more guides you bring in, the thinner you're going to want to actually make those clumps. And then you can have fewer hairs per clump, but it's all kind of a give and take as far as how you want to control it. So, but yeah, go ahead and play with it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be around tomorrow. Like I said, I'll maybe look into what's going on with your eyebrows for you, so we can get a better understanding of that. And then I'll just send you an email or an FSO message when I have those figured out. So hope you have a good evening, and let me know if you have any questions.